Sandra Mitchell grabbed the little girl's arm and pulled. "Sweetie, are you okay? Do you know this man? You can tell me the truth." Zoe screamed. Marcus Williams felt something snap inside him. 42 years of restraint. 42 years of "yes, sir," and "no, ma'am." And let me explain. 42 years of swallowing rage to survive. "Take your hand off my daughter." His voice was quiet, deadly quiet, the kind of quiet that comes before storms. Sandra didn't let go. "I'm calling the police. There's a black male here with a child that may not be his and a vehicle that's almost certainly stolen." What Sandra didn't know, what would destroy her entire world in the next 15 minutes, was that Marcus Williams owned everything she was standing on. Subscribe now and comment which city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story reaches. "Take your hand off my daughter. I won't ask again." Marcus stepped forward. Sandra released Zoe's arm and stumbled backward, her phone already in her hand. Zoe ran to her father, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, she hurt me." Marcus knelt down, his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Let me see, baby girl." Red marks on her forearm, finger-shaped, his daughter's skin marked by a stranger's grip. "I'm scared, Daddy." I know. He pulled her close, felt her small body trembling against his chest. "It's going to be okay." "I'm calling 911. Sandra announced, her voice shaking but defiant. "You can't threaten me." "I didn't threaten you. I told you to stop touching my child." "Your child?" Sandra laughed. "Right. And I suppose that Rolls-Royce is yours too." "It is." 911. What's your emergency?" The tinny voice came through Sandra's speakerphone. "Yes, I need police at Riverside Estates immediately. There's a black male approximately 6 feet tall who may have abducted a child. He's also driving what appears to be a stolen Rolls-Royce. He just threatened me when I tried to help the little girl." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Abducted." She said abducted. "Ma'am, can you describe the child?" "She's about 7 or 8, light-skinned. She seems scared. I don't think she belongs with this man." Zoe looked up at her father. "Why is she lying, Daddy? Why is she saying those things?" Marcus had no answer. What could he say? "How do you explain hatred to an 8-year-old? Sir, is the suspect still on the scene?" "He's right here. He's not leaving. Please hurry." Sandra ended the call and crossed her arms. "The police will sort this out." "You just told them I abducted my own daughter. We'll see about that, won't we?" Marcus stood slowly. Zoe clung to his leg, her face buried against his thigh. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sandra Mitchell. I'm the president of this HOA. And you're trespassing." "I'm standing in a parking lot. A private parking lot, in a gated community, where you don't belong." "How do you know where I belong?" "Because I know everyone who lives here, and I've never seen you before." An elderly white man emerged from the clubhouse. "Sandra, what's going on out here?" "Frank, stay back. I've called the police. This man may be dangerous." Frank looked at Marcus, looked at the crying child, looked at the Rolls-Royce. "He doesn't look dangerous to me." "He threatened me." "I told her to stop grabbing my daughter's arm," Marcus said calmly. Frank's eyebrows rose. "You grabbed a child, Sandra." "I was trying to help her. She was with a strange man. Her father, apparently." "We don't know that." More residents were emerging now. A couple in tennis whites, a woman walking a small dog, a young man with a laptop bag. They formed a loose semicircle around the confrontation, phones appearing in hands. "Everyone just stay calm," Sandra commanded. "The police are on their way." "You called the police?" The woman with the dog looked horrified. "On a man with his daughter." "We don't know it's his daughter. Daddy?" Zoe's voice was small, broken. "I want to go home." Marcus stroked her hair. "Soon, baby girl? Soon." "Why does she keep saying I'm not yours, I'm yours, you're my daddy?" "I know, sweetheart. Mommy's in heaven, and you're my daddy, and she's lying." The words hit the crowd like a physical force. The woman with the dog pressed her hand to her mouth. Frank shook his head slowly. Sandra's face flickered. Was that guilt? But she recovered quickly. "Anyone can coach a child to say anything. That proves nothing." "What would prove it to you?" Marcus asked. "What would satisfy you that I have a right to exist in this parking lot with my own child? Show me some ID." Marcus reached for his wallet. "Don't reach into your pockets." He froze. "You just asked for ID." "I said show me. I didn't say reach for anything. The police will verify your identity when they get here. Keep your hands where I can see them." The tennis couple exchanged glances. The husband stepped forward. "Ma'am, this seems excessive. The man was just reaching for his wallet." "You don't know what he was reaching for. He's wearing a tailored suit. Where exactly do you think he's hiding a weapon?" Sandra's face reddened. "I'm responsible for the safety of this community. If something happens because I wasn't careful enough—" "Something is happening," Frank interrupted. "You're traumatizing a child." "I'm protecting a child. From her own father." "We don't know he's her father." Sirens in the distance. Getting closer. Zoe started crying harder. "Daddy, are they going to take you away?" Marcus felt his heart crack. He knelt down again, cupped her face in his hands. "Nobody is taking me anywhere, I promise." "But the police? The police are going to ask some questions and I'm going to answer them, and then we're going to get ice cream. Remember, I promised." "I don't want ice cream anymore. I want to go home." "Soon, I promise. Can you be brave for Daddy? Can you be my brave girl?" She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "That's my girl. Now I need you to do something for me. When the police get here, I need you to stay very quiet and let Daddy do the talking. Can you do that?" "Yes, Daddy." "Good girl." The patrol car pulled through the gates. Sandra straightened her blazer, smoothed her hair, ready for her moment. Finally. The car stopped. The door opened. A Latina officer stepped out, her hand resting on her belt. Sandra rushed toward her. "Officer, thank God you're here. This man—" "Ma'am, I need you to step back." "But I'm the one who called. I'm Sandra Mitchell, the HOA president. This man—" "Ma'am, step back." Sandra retreated, confusion crossing her face. The officer approached Marcus slowly. Her eyes moved from his face to Zoe to the Rolls-Royce and back. "Sir, I'm Officer Martinez. Can you tell me what happened here?" "I pulled into the parking lot to pick up some documents from the clubhouse. This woman approached me, questioned why I was here, and when I couldn't satisfy her curiosity, she grabbed my daughter's arm. Hard enough to leave marks. Then she called 911 and told you I abducted my own child." "She grabbed the child. There are marks on her arm." Martinez knelt down to Zoe's level. "Hey there, sweetheart. My name is Maria. Can you show me your arm?" Zoe looked at Marcus. He nodded. She held out her arm. The red marks were still visible. Martinez's expression hardened. She stood and turned to Sandra. "You grabbed this child?" "I was trying to help her. By leaving bruises on her arm." "I barely touched her." "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to be very careful about your next words. Making false statements to a police officer is a crime." Sandra's confidence cracked. I didn't. The child was with a stranger and her father." "We don't know that." Martinez turned back to Marcus. "Sir, do you have identification?" "Yes. May I reach for my wallet?" "Slowly, please." Marcus withdrew his wallet, extracted his driver's license. He handed it over. Martinez examined it. "Marcus Williams, this is your current address?" "Yes." "And the vehicle?" Marcus handed over the registration. Martinez walked back to her cruiser, spoke into her radio. The parking lot waited in silence. When she returned, her face was neutral, but her eyes were not. "Mr. Williams, your identification checks out. The vehicle is registered to your name. You have no warrants, no flags, no issues. Of course I don't. You're free to go about your business. Sandra exploded. What? That's it. He threatened me. He could be a kidnapper. You can't just, ma'am, I need you to calm down. I will not calm down. I am the president of this HOA and I demand, Mrs. Mitchell. Martinez's voice turned to ice. You called 911 and reported a child abduction. You told dispatch that this man may have abducted a little girl. You described the situation as a possible kidnapping. Do you understand the seriousness of those accusations? Sandra's face paled. I said may have. I didn't say definitely. You also grabbed a child hard enough to leave visible marks on her skin. That's assault. I was helping her. By bruising her arm. I barely touched her. The marks on her arm say otherwise. Frank stepped forward. Officer, I witnessed the interaction. The child screamed when Mrs. Mitchell grabbed her. It was not gentle. Thank you, sir. Martinez made a note. Mrs. Mitchell, I could arrest you right now. Child abuse. Filing a false police report. Assault. Do you understand that? Sandra's legs seemed to buckle. She grabbed a nearby pillar for support. I was protecting the community. From what? From... Sandra gestured vaguely at Marcus. From people who don't belong here. And how do you determine who belongs, Mrs. Mitchell? Silence. What specifically about Mr. Williams made you decide he didn't belong? He's wearing a suit that probably costs more than your monthly salary. He's driving a vehicle worth more than your house. He's been nothing but calm and cooperative while you physically assaulted his daughter and accused him of kidnapping. So tell me, what was it about him that made you so certain he didn't belong? Sandra's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I didn't recognize him. You don't recognize every visitor to this community. But the car... What about the car? It didn't make sense. What didn't make sense? That he could afford it. Sandra said nothing. I'll ask you again, Mrs. Mitchell. What about Mr. Williams made you decide to call 911, grab his child, and accuse him of kidnapping? What was it about him that seemed so threatening? The crowd watched in silence. The phones kept recording. Sandra started to cry. I'm not racist. I have black friends. I was trying to protect... You keep saying that. But I don't think you know what you were protecting, or who you were protecting it from. Marcus watched this woman unravel, watched her tears fall, watched her certainty crumble into ash. He should have felt satisfied. This was justice, wasn't it? This was karma, comeuppance, everything she deserved. But all he felt was tired. Officer Martinez, he said quietly. She turned. There's something you should know. Yes. I'm not just a visitor here. He opened his briefcase and withdrew a folder. Inside were documents. Lots of documents. Legal papers covered in stamps and signatures. My name is Marcus Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Williams Property Group. 8 months ago, my company acquired Riverside Estates from Jameson Development Group. He handed the folder to Martinez. I own this clubhouse. I own this parking lot. I own those gates she's so proud of. I own every blade of grass in this community. This woman, he nodded toward Sandra, works for me. Or rather, she works for a company that answers to my company. The silence was absolute. Martinez flipped through the documents. Her eyebrows rose with each page. These appear to be legitimate. They are. There are also copies of 3 certified letters sent to the HOA president informing her of the ownership change. All delivered. All signed for. All ignored. He pulled out his phone, scrolled to his email. Here. Notification sent January 15th. Follow-up February 3rd. Final notice March 1st. All to the HOA president's official email address. He turned the screen toward Sandra. That's your email address, isn't it, Mrs. Mitchell? Sandra stared at the screen. Her face had gone from red to white to something like gray. I don't... Margaret, Frank called toward the clubhouse. Margaret Chin. A small woman appeared in the doorway. She looked terrified. The letters from Williams Property Group. The certified ones. What happened to them? Margaret's voice trembled. I gave them to Sandra. All 3. She said she'd handle them. And she put them in a drawer, said they were probably routine corporate stuff that could wait. That was 8 months ago, Margaret. I know. I reminded her, twice. She said she was too busy with the spring gala. Every head turned to Sandra. She stood alone, abandoned by her own authority, stripped of her certainty, tears and mascara running down her face. I didn't know, she whispered. I swear to God I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't bother to check, Marcus said. You were so busy playing queen of this little kingdom that you couldn't be bothered to read your own mail. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't want your apology, Mrs. Mitchell. Then what do you want? Marcus looked at his daughter. Zoe was still pressed against his leg, still trembling, still marked by this woman's fingers. I want you to understand what you did today. Not to me. I've dealt with people like you my whole life. I have the money and the power to protect myself. But my daughter, his voice cracked. She's 8 years old. She just wanted to play on the playground while her daddy picked up some papers. And you grabbed her. You accused me of stealing her. You called the police and told them I kidnapped my own child. Do you have any idea what that could have done? What could have happened? Sandra was sobbing now. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. People have died in situations like this. Black fathers have been shot reaching for their wallets. Black children have been taken from their parents over false reports exactly like the one you made. You weaponized the police against us because you couldn't imagine that a black man could own a nice car and have a legitimate reason to be here. I didn't mean... It doesn't matter what you meant. It matters what you did. Officer Martinez stepped forward. Mr. Williams, do you want to press charges? Marcus looked at Sandra. Really looked at her. She was pathetic, small, broken. Everything she'd built over 6 years, her authority, her reputation, her self-image as a protector of the community, all of it destroyed by her own prejudice. Destroying her further wouldn't heal the marks on Zoe's arm, wouldn't erase the fear in his daughter's eyes, wouldn't undo the moment when a stranger grabbed her and asked if she really belonged to her own father. No, he said finally. I'm not pressing charges. Sandra's knees gave out. She sank to the ground sobbing. But I want this documented. Every detail, every word of that 911 call, every lie she told. I want it on record in case there's ever a pattern. It will be thoroughly documented, Martinez assured him. Marcus turned to the gathered crowd. My name is Marcus Williams. I own this community. There will be a meeting next week to discuss the ownership transition that should have happened 8 months ago. I believe in transparency. I believe in open communication. I believe that everyone, regardless of what they look like, deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. He looked down at Sandra, still crumpled on the ground. I also believe in accountability. The HOA leadership of this community will be under review. If there are other residents who have experienced what my daughter and I experienced today, I want to hear about it. Frank raised his hand slowly. There have been incidents. The Kim family. The Rodriguezes. Others. Then we have a lot to discuss. Marcus reached down and picked up Zoe. She wrapped her arms around his neck, her face buried against his shoulder. Right now, I'm going to take my daughter to get ice cream. Because I promised her, and I keep my promises. He carried her toward the Rolls-Royce. Mr. Williams! Officer Martinez called. He turned. For what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened. Thank you, officer. You handled this professionally. I appreciate that. It's my job. Not everyone does their job with integrity. You do. He opened the back door, settled Zoe into her car seat, buckled her in carefully. Daddy. Yes, baby girl. Are we still getting ice cream? We are absolutely getting ice cream. What flavor do you want? Chocolate chip cookie dough. Chocolate chip cookie dough it is. He closed her door, walked around to the driver's side. Before he got in, he looked back at the scene one more time. Sandra was still on the ground. Frank and Margaret were helping her up. The crowd was dispersing, but the phones were still out. This video would be everywhere by tonight. Good. Let them see. Let them see what happens when prejudice meets power. Let them see what happens when a black man refuses to shrink. Let them see what his daughter saw today, that her daddy could face hatred and lies and accusations and still stand tall. Marcus got in the car, started the engine. That familiar purr of precision engineering. Daddy. Yes. That lady was wrong, wasn't she? Yes, baby girl, she was very wrong. But you didn't yell at her. No, I didn't. Why not? Marcus thought for a moment. How to explain this to an 8-year-old? Because yelling doesn't change anything. Some people are so stuck in their wrongness that yelling just makes them dig in deeper. The best thing you can do is stay calm. Tell the truth and let them destroy themselves. Is that what she did, destroyed herself? I think so, yes. Good. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. His daughter's face was still tear-streaked, but there was something else there now. Something harder. He wasn't sure if that was a good thing or not. Zoe. Yeah. What she did was wrong, but I don't want you to become hard because of it. I don't want you to hate people because of what one person did. Do you understand? I understand, Daddy. Most people are good. Most people wouldn't do what she did. But some people would. Yes, some people would. So how do I know which is which? Marcus pulled through the gates of Riverside Estates, the same gates that belonged to him. The same gates that Sandra Mitchell thought gave her the power to decide who belonged and who didn't. You don't always know, baby girl. That's the hard part. You have to give people a chance, but you also have to protect yourself. It's a balance. That sounds hard. It is hard, but you're smart and you're strong and you have me. We'll figure it out together. Promise? Promise. They drove towards Scoops and Dreams. Behind them, Riverside Estates receded into the distance. The clubhouse, the parking lot, the woman who had tried to take everything from them and ended up losing everything herself. This wasn't the end. Marcus knew that. The meeting next week, the audit of HOA finances, the review of Sandra's leadership, the stories from the Kim family and the Rodriguezes and whoever else she had targeted. This was just the beginning. But right now, in this moment, his daughter wanted chocolate chip cookie dough ice cream. And some things were more important than justice. The ice cream helped. Not much, but enough. Zoe ate her chocolate chip cookie dough in silence, her small spoon scraping against the paper cup with a rhythm that told Marcus she was thinking. Processing. Trying to make sense of what had happened. He watched her from across the small table at Scoops and Dreams, his own cup of vanilla untouched. The marks on her arm had faded to pink, but they were still there, still visible, still evidence. Daddy? Yeah, baby girl. Why did that lady think you stole me? Marcus set down his spoon. He'd known this question was coming, had been dreading it since they left Riverside Estates. She didn't really think that, Zoe. But she said it. She told the police. I know, but sometimes people say things they don't really believe. Sometimes they say things because they're scared or angry, or because they've been taught to think a certain way. What way? Marcus took a deep breath. Angela would have known how to explain this. Angela had a gift for making hard things simple, for turning pain into lessons without losing the truth of it. But Angela wasn't here. She'd been gone for 3 years, and Marcus was still learning how to do this alone. Some people look at someone like me, someone with brown skin, and they make assumptions. They decide things about who I am, what I do, what I'm capable of, before they even talk to me. It's not fair, and it's not right, but it happens. But you're a good person. I try to be. And you own that whole place. You're the boss. I am. So why didn't she know that? Why didn't she check? Because she didn't want to know. She'd already decided what I was. And once people decide something like that, they don't look for evidence that they're wrong. They only look for evidence that they're right. Zoe's brow furrowed. That's stupid. Marcus almost laughed. Yeah, it is. Is that why Mommy used to say we have to work twice as hard? The words hit him like a punch to the chest, Angela's voice echoing through their daughter. The conversations they'd had when Zoe was too young to understand, thinking she wasn't listening. You remember that? She said it to you once, when you were worried about a meeting. She said, "Baby, you've always had to work twice as hard to get half as far, but that's why you're twice as good." Marcus's eyes burned. She was right. I miss her. I miss her too, baby girl, every day. They sat in silence for a while, the sounds of the ice cream shop filling the space between them. Other families laughing, children arguing over toppings, normal life continuing as if nothing had happened. Daddy? Yeah. Are you going to fire that lady? Marcus considered the question. He'd been asking himself the same thing since they left the parking lot. I don't know yet. There's going to be a meeting. A lot of people are going to have to answer some questions. Like what? Like why she ignored all those letters. Like whether she's treated other people the way she treated us. Like whether she can still do her job after what happened today. I hope you fire her. Zoe. She hurt me, Daddy. She grabbed my arm and she lied about you, and she made me scared. I hope she loses everything. The venom in his daughter's voice startled him. This wasn't the Zoe he knew. The Zoe who cried when she accidentally stepped on a caterpillar. The Zoe who insisted on leaving cookies out for Santa, even though she was starting to suspect he wasn't real. Baby girl, look at me. She looked up, her eyes hard in a way they'd never been before. What that woman did was wrong. Very wrong. And there are going to be consequences for her. But I don't want you to carry hate in your heart because of it. Hate is heavy. It weighs you down. It makes you tired and angry, and it doesn't change anything. But she hates us. She hates people who look like us. Maybe. Or maybe she's just scared and ignorant, and she's been taught to see threats where there aren't any. I don't know what's in her heart, but I know what I want in yours, and it's not hate. Then what? Strength, wisdom. The ability to see people for who they really are, not what they look like. And the knowledge that no matter what anyone says or does, you are worthy. You belong. You have every right to take up space in this world. Zoe's hard expression softened, just a little. Mommy used to say that too. Your mommy was the wisest person I ever knew. I wish she was here. Me too, baby girl, me too. Marcus's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Frank Morrison. I need to take this, okay? Finish your ice cream. He stepped away from the table and answered. Frank? Mr. Williams, Marcus, I hope I'm not interrupting. We're just getting ice cream. What's going on? I thought you should know. Sandra's been taken to the hospital. Marcus felt something twist in his gut. What happened? Panic attack, apparently. After you left, she completely fell apart. Couldn't breathe, couldn't stand, kept saying she'd ruined everything. Margaret called an ambulance. Is she going to be okay? Physically, yes. But, Marcus, I've known Sandra for 6 years. I've never seen her like that. She's always been so controlled, so certain of herself. Watching her crumble like that? I didn't want this, Frank. I know you didn't. But it happened. And now the whole community is talking about it. The video is already on Facebook. Someone posted it to Twitter. It's spreading. Marcus closed his eyes. How bad? Thousands of views already. And the comments? Frank paused. Some people are defending her. Most aren't. There's talk about starting a petition to remove her from the HOA board. Some residents are saying they've had similar experiences with her. Similar how? The Kim family, like I mentioned. She tried to fine them for their Lunar New Year decorations. Said they violated community standards, but there's nothing in the bylaws about it. The Rodriguezes she called immigration on their landscaping crew. Turned out they were all legal, but she never apologized, just said she was being cautious. Anyone else? A young black couple who moved in last year, the Jeffersons. Sandra fought their application for months, said their credit wasn't good enough, but I saw their file. Their credit was better than half the people in this community. They eventually got approved, but only because another board member threatened to report her to the Fair Housing Commission. Marcus felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders. This wasn't just one incident. This was a pattern. Years of behavior unchecked and unchallenged because no one wanted to make waves. Why didn't anyone stop her? Frank sighed. Because she was good at her job, Marcus. Everything else aside, she kept the community running. The finances were always in order. The maintenance was always done. The meetings were always efficient. People looked the other way because it was easier than fighting. And the people she targeted, what about them? Most of them just endured it, or left. The Jeffersons almost sold their house after the first year. They only stayed because they couldn't afford to move again. I want to talk to them, all of them. The Kims, the Rodriguezes, the Jeffersons, anyone else who has the story to tell. I can arrange that. When? Tomorrow. At my office downtown. Can you get them there? I'll make some calls. And Frank, thank you for speaking up today, for not looking the other way. I should have spoken up sooner. Years sooner. I'm sorry it took this long. Marcus ended the call and stood for a moment staring at nothing. The weight on his shoulders was heavier now. This wasn't just about what happened to him and Zoe. This was about a community that had allowed one woman's prejudice to fester until it poisoned everything. He walked back to the table. Zoe had finished her ice cream and was drawing on a napkin with a crayon from the kid's cup. Everything okay, Daddy? Everything's fine, baby girl. Ready to go home? Yeah. They drove in silence. Zoe fell asleep before they were halfway there, her head lolling against the car seat, her face peaceful in a way it hadn't been since that woman grabbed her arm. Marcus watched her in the rearview mirror and made a decision. He wasn't just going to hold a meeting. He was going to clean house. The next morning, Marcus sat at the head of the conference table in his downtown office. The room was designed to impress floor-to-ceiling windows, polished mahogany artwork that cost more than most people's cars. He usually felt comfortable here, powerful, in control. Today he just felt tired. The door opened and his assistant ushered in the first guests. Frank Morrison, looking uncomfortable in a sport coat that was probably 20 years old. Behind him, a Korean couple in their 60s, Mr. and Mrs. Kim. Then a Hispanic man and woman, the Rodriguezes, both dressed like they'd come straight from church. And finally, a young black couple, the Jeffersons, holding hands, like they were afraid to let go. Thank you all for coming, Marcus said. Please sit down. They arranged themselves around the table, exchanging uncertain glances. I know this is unusual, and I know some of you might be wondering why I asked you here, so let me be direct. Marcus leaned forward. Yesterday, a woman named Sandra Mitchell called the police on me and my daughter. She accused me of stealing my car and kidnapping my own child. She grabbed my daughter's arm hard enough to leave marks. Mrs. Kim made a small sound. Her husband put his hand on hers. I've since learned that what happened to us wasn't an isolated incident. That Sandra has been targeting minority residents and employees for years. That she's used her position as HOA president to harass, intimidate, and discriminate against people who don't fit her idea of who belongs in Riverside Estates. She told immigration I was hiring illegals, Mr. Rodriguez said quietly. My crew has worked for me for 15 years, all legal, all documented. She didn't care. She just wanted to cause trouble. She tried to block our application for 6 months, Mrs. Jefferson added. Mrs. Jefferson said our credit wasn't good enough, but I'm an accountant. I know what good credit looks like. Our score was 780. She called our decorations foreign and inappropriate. Mrs. Kim said, her voice trembling. We've celebrated Lunar New Year our entire lives. Our parents celebrated it. Our grandparents. It's not inappropriate. It's who we are. Marcus listened to each story, feeling his anger build with every word. This woman had terrorized his community for years, hiding her prejudice behind procedure, her hatred behind policy. I want to apologize to all of you, he said when they finished. Not because I did anything wrong, but because I own this community, and I didn't know what was happening in it. That's my failure, and I'm going to fix it. How? Mr. Jefferson asked. Tomorrow night there's going to be a community meeting. Every resident invited. I'm going to explain who I am, why the ownership changed, and what happened yesterday. And then I'm going to ask for Sandra Mitchell's resignation from the HOA board. She'll fight it, Frank warned. She has allies. People who think she's done a good job. Let her fight. I have documentation of every complaint, every incident, every ignored letter. I have video of her grabbing my daughter and calling the police on me for existing. And I have all of you witnesses willing to testify about what she's done. What if she refuses to resign? Mrs. Rodriguez asked. Then I'll remove her. As majority property owner, I have the authority to dissolve the current HOA board and appoint a new one. I'd prefer not to use that power. I'd prefer she leave voluntarily and let the community heal. But if she forces my hand... He let the sentence hang. What do you need from us? Mrs. Kim asked. I need you to come to the meeting. I need you to tell your stories. I need the community to hear what Sandra has done, not from me, but from the people she hurt. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Mr. Jefferson stood up. I'll be there. His wife stood beside him. Me too. One by one they all rose. The Kims, the Rodriguezes, Frank. We'll be there, Mrs. Kim said. It's time people knew the truth. Marcus felt something loosen in his chest. He wasn't alone in this. These people, these strangers who had suffered in silence for years, were standing with him. Thank you, he said. All of you. This won't be easy. Sandra has friends. There will be people who defend her, who attack you for speaking up. But I promise you I will not let her hurt anyone else. The meeting broke up slowly. People shook hands, exchanged phone numbers, made plans to arrive at the community meeting together. Safety in numbers. Frank was the last to leave. Marcus, there's something else you should know. What is it? Sandra's out of the hospital. She's already making calls trying to get ahead of this. Telling people you threatened her, that you're trying to stage a hostile takeover of the community. Let her talk. The truth is on my side. The truth doesn't always win. You know that better than anyone. Marcus did know. He'd spent his entire career fighting against people who valued narrative over fact, perception over reality. I have something she doesn't have, he said. What's that video? Video. Multiple angles. Her own words on a 911 call. And a little girl with bruises on her arm. She can spin whatever story she wants. But she can't spin that. Frank nodded slowly. I hope you're right. I am. Now go home. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. After Frank left, Marcus sat alone in the empty conference room. The city spread out below him through the windows, Atlanta, the city that had given him everything. The city where he'd started with nothing, where he'd built an empire from one rental property and a dream. Angela had believed in that dream, had pushed him when he wanted to quit, held him when he wanted to cry, celebrated with him when the impossible became real. What would she say about all this? He already knew. She'd tell him to fight, not for revenge, not for pride, but for the people who couldn't fight for themselves. For the Kims and the Rodriguezes and the Jeffersons. For every black man who'd been stopped for driving a nice car, every Hispanic worker accused of being illegal, every Asian family told their culture was inappropriate. For Zoe. Especially for Zoe. His phone buzzed. A text from the nanny. "Zoe's asking for you. She had a nightmare." Marcus grabbed his keys and headed for the door. The meeting. The strategy, the fight, all of it could wait. His daughter needed him. He found her curled up in her bed, the nightlight casting soft shadows across her face. Her eyes were red, her cheeks still wet. "Hey, baby girl." "Daddy." She reached for him, and he scooped her up, holding her against his chest. Bad dream. "The lady was chasing me. She kept saying I didn't belong to you. She kept trying to take me away." "Nobody's taking you anywhere. You're my girl, mine, forever." "Promise?" "Promise. Cross my heart." She pressed her face into his neck. "I don't want to go back there, to that place." "You don't have to, not for a long time. And when we do go back, things are going to be different, I promise." "Different how?" "That woman isn't going to be in charge anymore. Nobody's going to grab you or question whether you belong. You're going to be able to play on that playground and eat ice cream and do whatever you want without anyone bothering you. Because you're the boss. Because I'm your daddy, and I protect what's mine." She was quiet for a long moment. "Daddy. Yeah. I love you. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in this whole world." He held her until she fell asleep, her breathing slow and even against his chest. Then he laid her gently back in her bed, pulled the covers up to her chin, and kissed her forehead. Tomorrow he would fight. Tonight, he would just be her father. The community meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. By 6:30, the clubhouse was already packed. Every seat taken. People standing along the walls. More gathered outside, watching through the windows. Marcus arrived at 6:45, flanked by his lawyer and his chief of operations. He'd thought about bringing Zoe, letting the community see the little girl Sandra had terrorized. But in the end, he'd decided against it. She'd been through enough. This wasn't her fight. It was his. The Kims were already there, seated in the second row. The Rodriguezes beside them. The Jeffersons near the back, looking nervous but determined. Frank stood near the door, nodding at Marcus as he entered. And there, in the front row, was Sandra Mitchell. She looked different than she had 2 days ago. Older. Diminished. Her makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the hollowness in her cheeks. But her chin was raised, her spine straight. She wasn't going down without a fight. Good, Marcus thought. I wouldn't respect her if she did. He walked to the front of the room, feeling every eye on him. The whispers died as he reached the podium. "Good evening. My name is Marcus Williams. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the founder and CEO of Williams Property Group. 8 months ago, my company acquired Riverside Estates from Jameson Development Group." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. He let them settle before continuing. "You should have been informed about this change months ago. Letters were sent. Emails were sent. All were ignored by your HOA leadership. That failure of communication is one of the reasons we're here tonight." He paused. Let the weight of those words sink in. But it's not the main reason. He turned his gaze to Sandra. She met his eyes without flinching. 2 days ago, I came to this clubhouse to review some documents. I brought my daughter with me. Within minutes of arriving, I was confronted by your HOA president who demanded to know why I was here, what I was doing, and whether the car I was driving was stolen. More murmurs. Louder now. When I couldn't satisfy her questions, when I refused to prove to a stranger that I had a right to exist in a parking lot, she called 911. She told the dispatcher that I had possibly abducted my own daughter. She told them my car was likely stolen. And when my daughter tried to run to me, Mrs. Mitchell grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks. Gasps from the crowd. Sandra's face tightened. I have video of this incident, multiple angles. The 911 call has been obtained through public records. I'm not going to show them tonight because I don't want to traumatize my daughter further by making her face viral content. But they exist, and they're damning. A man in the middle of the crowd stood up. "This is hearsay. You can't just—" "Sit down, Richard," Frank called out. "Let him finish." Richard sat scowling. What happened to me isn't unique. Marcus continued. Over the past 6 years, Mrs. Mitchell has used her position to target minority residents and employees. She's filed false complaints, blocked applications, harassed families, and created a hostile environment for anyone who doesn't fit her idea of who belongs in this community. That's a lie. Sandra finally spoke, rising from her seat. I've done nothing but protect this community for 6 years. Protected it from what? Marcus asked calmly. From the Kim family's Lunar New Year decorations. From the Rodriguez family's legal landscaping crew. From the Jeffersons whose only crime was applying to live here while black. Those were all legitimate concerns. They were discrimination. Documented, repeated, systematic discrimination. Sandra's face flushed red. You don't know anything about running a community. You just bought this place to add to your portfolio. You don't care about the residents. I care about the residents you hurt. I care about the little girl you grabbed. I care about the families who have been suffering in silence because they were afraid to speak up. I was doing my job. Your job is to serve this community, not to terrorize it. The room erupted. People shouting, some defending Sandra, most attacking her. Richard was on his feet again, yelling something about due process. Mrs. Kim was crying. The Jeffersons were holding hands so tight their knuckles were white. Marcus raised his hand. Slowly, the noise subsided. I'm not here to destroy Sandra Mitchell. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because this community deserves better. Because my daughter deserves better. Because every person in this room, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, deserves to feel safe in their own neighborhood. He turned to Sandra one last time. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm asking for your resignation, effective immediately. In exchange, I won't pursue criminal charges for filing a false police report or civil charges for assaulting my daughter. You'll be free to sell your home and move on with your life. But your time as a leader in this community is over. Sandra stared at him. Her mouth worked, but no words came out. The room waited. Finally, she spoke. No. The word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. No. Marcus had expected resistance. He'd prepared for arguments, deflections, excuses. But the flat defiance in Sandra's voice, the absolute refusal to accept any accountability, that caught him off guard. Excuse me. I said no. Sandra straightened her spine, and something of the old authority returned to her voice. I'm not resigning. I've given 6 years of my life to this community. I've kept the finances balanced, the grounds maintained, the property values stable. And you want me to throw all of that away because of one misunderstanding. One misunderstanding. Marcus's voice was dangerously quiet. You called the police on me. You told them I kidnapped my daughter. You grabbed an 8-year-old child hard enough to leave bruises. I was trying to help her. She was screaming for you to let go. Because she was confused. Because you'd coached her. Coached her. Marcus stepped forward and Sandra took an involuntary step back. You think I coached my daughter to scream in terror? You think I taught her to cry and beg a stranger to stop hurting her? I didn't hurt her. There are photographs of the marks on her arm. Photographs can be faked. The crowd erupted. People were on their feet now, shouting over each other, some defending Sandra, most condemning her. The room had become a powder keg, and every word was a spark. Frank pushed through the crowd to the front. Everyone, please, we need to... Stay out of this, Frank, Richard shouted. This is a witch hunt. This man shows up out of nowhere, claims he owns everything, and we're just supposed to believe him. I have the deed of sale, Marcus said. I have the transition documents. I have... Documents can be forged. They've been verified by county records. County records can be manipulated. Marcus turned to face Richard directly. What would satisfy you? What evidence would you accept? Richard's face twisted. I don't know who you are or where you came from, but I know Sandra. I've known her for 6 years. She's a good woman, a decent woman, and I'm not going to stand here and watch you destroy her reputation based on some sob story about your kid. My kid. Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried to every corner of the room. "You want to talk about my kid?" He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and held it up. "This is my daughter, Zoe Williams. She's 8 years old. Her mother died 3 years ago from breast cancer. She's all I have left in this world." The photo showed Zoe at her piano recital, beaming in her pink dress. "2 days ago I brought her here because I promised her ice cream after my meeting. She was excited. She wanted to play on the playground while I grabbed some documents. That's all. That's the entire crime she committed." He swiped to another photo. "This is her arm. 4 hours after Sandra Mitchell grabbed her." The red marks were clearly visible, finger-shaped, unmistakable. Several people in the crowd gasped. One woman pressed her hand over her mouth. "My daughter hasn't slept through the night since this happened. She has nightmares about being taken away from me. She asked me yesterday if all white people hate us, and I didn't know what to tell her. I didn't know how to explain that one person's hatred doesn't represent everyone." He lowered the phone. "So don't talk to me about sob stories, Richard. Don't talk to me about reputations. My daughter's innocence was stolen in that parking lot. Her sense of safety. Her belief that the world is basically fair. She'll carry what happened for the rest of her life. And you're worried about Sandra Mitchell's reputation." Richard had no response. Sandra's lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who'd been sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke up. "Mr. Williams, my client denies any intentional wrongdoing. The incident in the parking lot was a misunderstanding that escalated unnecessarily. Mrs. Mitchell was acting in what she believed to be the best interests of the community and potentially a child she perceived to be in danger." A child she perceived to be in danger from her own father. Mrs. Mitchell had no way of knowing you were the child's father. She didn't ask. She didn't ask for ID. She didn't ask any questions at all. She saw a black man with a nice car and immediately assumed criminal activity. That's speculation about my client's thought process. It's documented on a 911 call. Would you like me to play it?" The lawyer hesitated. "That won't be necessary." "I think it is." Marcus pulled out a small speaker from his briefcase, connected his phone, and pressed play. Sandra's voice filled the room. "There's a black male, approximately 6 feet tall, who may have abducted a child. He's also driving what appears to be a stolen Rolls-Royce." Silence. "He just threatened me when I tried to help the little girl." More silence. "She seems scared. I don't think she belongs with this man." Marcus stopped the recording. "May have abducted. What appears to be stolen. I don't think she belongs with this man." He looked at Sandra. "Those are your words, on a recorded 911 call. How exactly did you determine that my daughter didn't belong with me?" Sandra's face had gone pale. "I was worried about the child. Any responsible adult would have done the same." "Would they? Let's test that." Marcus turned to the crowd. "How many of you have seen a white man with a child in this community, at the playground, at the pool, walking down the street?" Most hands went up. "And how many of you called 911 to report a possible kidnapping?" Not a single hand. Why not? How did you know those children belonged with those men? Did you check their ID? Did you verify their vehicle registration? The room was silent. You didn't. Because when you see a white man with a child, you assume he's the father. It doesn't even occur to you to question it. But when Sandra Mitchell saw a black man with a child, the first thing she did was call the police. "That's different," Sandra burst out. "How? How is it different?" "Because you were acting suspicious." "What did I do that was suspicious?" "I parked my car. I walked toward the clubhouse. I was holding my daughter's hand. Which part of that was criminal behavior? You didn't have an appointment. Since when do you need an appointment to visit a clubhouse in a community you own? I didn't know you owned it. Because you didn't read your mail. You ignored 3 letters, 2 emails, and a registered package, all telling you exactly who I was and what my relationship to this property was. Your ignorance is not my responsibility." Sandra's lawyer stepped in again. Mr. Williams, regardless of the circumstances, my client is willing to issue a formal apology and undergo sensitivity training. We believe that's a reasonable resolution that allows everyone to move forward. Sensitivity training. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think a class is going to fix this? You think a few PowerPoints about implicit bias are going to undo what she did to my daughter? It's a start. It's not enough, not even close. Mrs. Kim stood up. Her husband tried to hold her back, but she shook him off. May I speak? Marcus nodded. Mrs. Kim walked to the front of the room, her hands trembling, but her voice steady. My name is Susan Kim. I've lived in Riverside Estates for 9 years. My husband and I came here because we wanted a safe, quiet place to raise our children. We thought we'd found it. She turned to face the crowd. 3 years ago, we put up decorations for Lunar New Year. Lanterns, a banner with good luck wishes. Things our family has displayed for generations. Within 2 days, Sandra Mitchell showed up at our door with a violation notice. She said our decorations were foreign and inappropriate and lowering property values. There are rules about exterior decorations, Sandra shouted. I read the bylaws. Mrs. Kim continued, ignoring her. There's nothing about cultural decorations, nothing about lanterns or banners. The rules talk about structural modifications, permanent fixtures, things that could damage the building, not paper lanterns that come down after 2 weeks. I was interpreting in the spirit of the rules. You were targeting us because we're Asian, because our celebrations didn't look like yours. That's ridiculous. Mr. Kim stood up beside his wife. She called our decorations that Chinese stuff. We're Korean. We've been Korean for 5 generations. But she didn't know the difference, didn't care to learn. Mrs. Jefferson rose next. My name is Tamara Jefferson. My husband Marcus and I moved here 18 months ago. Or we tried to. She walked to the front, her heels clicking against the floor. Our application was delayed for 6 months. 6 months of excuses. Our credit wasn't verified yet. Our references hadn't been contacted. The background check was still processing. Every time we called, there was another reason we couldn't move forward. The application process is thorough, Sandra said weakly. Our credit score was 780. My husband is a software engineer at Microsoft. I'm a CPA. We had references from 2 Fortune 500 executives, but somehow our application took 6 months while a white couple who applied after us was approved in 3 weeks. That's coincidence. Is it because I talked to that couple? Their credit score was lower than ours. They had fewer references, but they got in without any problems. Mr. Rodriguez stood up. My name is Carlos Rodriguez. I own a landscaping company. I've been maintaining the grounds here for 8 years. He walked forward, his work-worn hands clasped in front of him. 2 years ago, Mrs. Mitchell called immigration on my crew, said she had concerns about their documentation. IC showed up at my work site. My men were held for 6 hours while their papers were verified. 6 hours of terror, because this woman decided they looked illegal. I was being cautious, Sandra cried. Cautious. Carlos's voice rose. Jose has been a citizen for 15 years. Miguel served in the Marine Corps. Antonio's family has been in America longer than yours, but you looked at them and saw criminals. I didn't say they were criminals. You called immigration. What did you think would happen? The room was turning against Sandra. Marcus could feel it, the shift in energy, the way people who'd been on the fence were now looking at her with disgust. Even Richard had sat down, his face troubled. Sandra's lawyer was whispering urgently in her ear, but she pushed him away. This is a coordinated attack, she shouted. You've all been paid off, bribed. This man shows up out of nowhere, claims to own everything, and suddenly everyone has a story about how I wronged them. Sandra. Frank's voice was tired. Sad. Stop. Just stop. Frank, you know me. You know I'm not. I know what I saw. I saw you grab that little girl. I saw you call the police on a man who was doing nothing wrong. And I've heard these stories before, Sandra. The Kims told me about the decorations. The Jeffersons told me about the application. I didn't want to believe it. You're turning on me too. I'm not turning on you. I'm finally seeing you clearly. Maybe for the first time. Sandra's face crumpled, the mask of defiance finally breaking. I was protecting this community. Everything I did was to protect this community. From what? Marcus asked quietly. From paper lanterns, from landscapers doing their jobs, from families who wanted a safe place to live. What exactly were you protecting against? From change. From people who don't understand how things work here, who don't respect our standards, who come in and try to turn everything upside down. Standards. Marcus stepped closer. Let me tell you about standards, Mrs. Mitchell. I grew up in a neighborhood where half the houses had bars on the windows. My mother worked 2 jobs to keep me in school. I got my first suit from Goodwill because we couldn't afford anything else. Everything I have, I built with my own 2 hands. He gestured around the room. I own 57 properties across 7 states. I employ over 200 people. I've donated more money to charity in the last year than you'll earn in your lifetime. And none of that mattered to you. None of it. Because you couldn't see past the color of my skin. That's not... You didn't see a businessman. You didn't see a father. You saw a threat, a criminal. Someone who couldn't possibly belong in your perfect little world. Sandra was crying now. Real tears. Ugly tears that smeared her makeup and left tracks down her cheeks. I didn't mean... I never meant... What didn't you mean? When you grabbed my daughter. What didn't you mean? When you told 911 she might be abducted? What didn't you mean? When you said that car couldn't possibly be mine? What exactly didn't you mean? She had no answer. The room waited. Marcus let the silence stretch. Let the weight of everything settle over the crowd. Let Sandra feel the full measure of what she'd done. Then he spoke again, his voice softer now. I came here tonight to ask for your resignation. I thought that was the right thing to do. Give you an exit. Let you leave with some dignity. But I don't think dignity is what this moment calls for. He turned to face the entire room. What Mrs. Mitchell did to me, to my daughter, to the Kims and the Rodriguezes and the Jeffersons, it wasn't just wrong. It was a symptom. A symptom of something that's been allowed to fester in this community for years. He looked at Richard, at Frank, at all the faces watching him. How many of you knew? How many of you saw what was happening and looked the other way? How many times did someone tell you about Sandra's behavior and you decided it wasn't your problem? The silence was damning. This isn't just about one person. It's about a community that allowed one person's prejudice to become policy. That chose comfort over justice. That let neighbors suffer because confronting the problem was too uncomfortable. He turned back to Sandra. Your resignation isn't enough. I'm dissolving the current HOA board effective immediately. Under the terms of the ownership agreement, I have the authority to do that when there's evidence of discriminatory practices. And I have plenty of evidence. You can't do that, Richard shouted. I can. Read the contract you signed when you bought your home. Section 14, paragraph 3. The property owner reserves the right to restructure community governance in cases of documented misconduct. Richard's face went red, but he didn't argue. A new board will be elected within 60 days. Any current member who wishes to run again is welcome to do so, except for Mrs. Mitchell, who is permanently barred from holding any leadership position in this community. Sandra let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a scream. You're destroying me. Over one mistake. One mistake. Mrs. Kim's voice cut through the room. What you did to my family wasn't a mistake. It was cruelty. What you did to my crew wasn't a mistake, Carlos added. It was terrorism. What you did to us wasn't a mistake, Tamara Jefferson said. It was racism, plain and simple. Sandra looked around the room searching for allies for support for anyone who would defend her. She found no one. Even Richard wouldn't meet her eyes. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "I gave everything to this community. Everything." "You gave what you wanted to give," Marcus said. "And you took what you wanted to take. You wielded power without accountability, authority, without empathy. That's not leadership. That's tyranny." He picked up his briefcase. "The meeting is adjourned. New elections will be announced within 2 weeks. Anyone with concerns or suggestions for the future governance of this community can contact my office directly. My team will be reviewing all HOA policies to ensure they comply with fair housing laws and basic human decency." He walked toward the door, then stopped. "Mrs. Mitchell, you have 48 hours to submit your written resignation. If I don't receive it, I'll file formal complaints with the State Fair Housing Commission and pursue civil action for assault on my daughter. The choice is yours." He walked out without looking back. The night air was cool against his face. Marcus stood in the parking lot taking deep breaths, trying to slow his heartbeat. It was done. But it didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhaustion, like emptiness, like the aftermath of a battle that never should have been fought. Frank appeared beside him. "That was something." "Yeah. She's finished. You know that, right? Even if she doesn't resign, she's done. Nobody's going to follow her after tonight." "Good. I know she deserved it, but watching someone fall apart like that?" "She fell apart because she got caught, not because she felt remorse. There's a difference." Frank nodded slowly. "I suppose there is." Marcus looked up at the sky. Stars were starting to appear faint against the fading blue. "My daughter asked me why people hate us. I didn't have an answer. I still don't. I don't think there is an answer, at least not one that makes sense. No, there isn't." They stood in silence for a while. "What happens now?" Frank asked. "Now I go home. I hold my daughter. I tell her that the world is better than it sometimes seems. And tomorrow I start building something new here. Something better." "Can you really do that? Change a whole community?" Marcus turned to face him. "I don't know, but I have to try. Not for me, for Zoe, for the Kims and the Rodriguezes and the Jeffersons, for everyone who comes after us." He opened his car door. "Good night, Frank. I'll be in touch about the elections." "Good night, Marcus. And thank you for not letting her win." Marcus got in his car and drove away. Behind him, the clubhouse lights flickered. Residents were filtering out, talking in small groups, processing what they'd witnessed. Sandra Mitchell sat alone in the empty room, her face buried in her hands, her world in ruins. She'd spent 6 years building a kingdom. Tonight it had crumbled to dust. And somewhere across town, a little girl was waiting for her daddy to come home and tell her that everything was going to be okay. Marcus pressed harder on the accelerator. He had promises to keep. Zoe was still awake when Marcus walked through the door. She was sitting on the couch in her pajamas, the nanny beside her, a half-eaten bowl of popcorn on the coffee table. Some animated movie was playing on the television, but Zoe wasn't watching it. Her eyes were fixed on the door, waiting. "Daddy?" She launched herself off the couch and ran to him. Marcus caught her, lifted her up, held her tight against his chest. "Hey, baby girl, what are you doing up so late?" "I couldn't sleep. I was worried about you." "Worried why?" "Because you went back to that place, where the mean lady lives." Marcus carried her to the couch, nodded to the nanny that she could go. When they were alone, he settled Zoe on his lap and brushed the hair from her face. "The mean lady isn't going to be in charge anymore." "You fired her." "Something like that." "Good." Zoe's voice was fierce. "She deserved it." "Maybe. But I want to talk to you about something." "What?" Marcus took a deep breath. This was the conversation he'd been dreading. The one he'd been putting off since the moment Sandra grabbed his daughter's arm. What happened to us at that place, what that woman did, it wasn't okay. You know that, right? Yes. And it's never okay for anyone to grab you, or scare you, or make you feel like you don't belong. Never. If anyone ever does that again, you tell me. Or you tell a teacher. Or you tell any adult you trust. Okay. Okay. But I also need you to understand something else, something harder. Zoe looked up at him, her eyes wide and trusting. What that woman did the way she treated us, it wasn't because of anything we did wrong. It was because of something wrong inside her, something broken. Some people look at other people and see enemies instead of neighbors, strangers instead of friends, threats instead of families. It's not fair and it's not right, but it happens. Why? I wish I knew, baby girl. I've been asking that question my whole life. Is it because we're black? The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. 8 years old, and she already knew, already understood the ugly truth that he'd spent his entire career trying to outrun. Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes it's because we're black. But that's stupid. We didn't choose to be black. No, we didn't. And there's nothing wrong with being black. Nothing at all. The problem isn't us. The problem is people who think skin color tells you something about who a person is. Like that lady. Like that lady. Zoe was quiet for a moment, processing. Daddy? Yeah. Are there a lot of people like her? Marcus wanted to lie. Wanted to tell her that Sandra Mitchell was an anomaly, a rare exception in a world that had learned to see past color and treat everyone fairly. But he couldn't lie to his daughter. Not about this. There are some, not most people. Most people are good, Zoe. Most people judge you by what you do, not what you look like. But there are some enough that you have to be careful. You have to know that they exist. That makes me sad. It makes me sad too. Mommy used to say that being black was beautiful. She said it was a gift. Marcus's eyes burned. Your mommy was right. Being black is beautiful. Our history, our culture, our strength, all of it. Don't ever let anyone make you ashamed of who you are. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud. Good. Hold on to that. Always. Zoe snuggled closer to him. Daddy. Yeah. Can we get ice cream tomorrow? We never got ice cream the other day. Marcus laughed. Really laughed for the first time in days. Yeah, baby girl. We can get ice cream tomorrow. Promise. Promise. Now come on. Time for bed. He carried her to her room, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. She was asleep before he reached the door. Marcus stood there for a moment watching her breathe. His daughter. His whole world. He would burn down empires for her. He would tear apart anyone who tried to hurt her. But he also knew that he couldn't protect her forever. Couldn't shield her from every Sandra Mitchell, every sideways glance, every assumption made about her before she even opened her mouth. All he could do was prepare her, arm her with knowledge, with confidence, with the unshakable belief that she was worthy of respect, dignity, and love. That would have to be enough. The next morning, Marcus woke to his phone buzzing relentlessly on the nightstand. 17 missed calls, 43 text messages, 212 emails. The video had gone viral. Not just from the parking lot, someone at the community meeting had recorded everything. Sandra's denials. The testimonies from the Kims and Rodriguezes and Jeffersons. Marcus's speech about his daughter. All of it uploaded to Twitter, shared on Facebook, picked up by local news stations. By noon, it was national. His assistant called at 7 a.m. Marcus, we have a problem. I'm aware. CNN wants a statement. So does MSNBC. Fox News is already running a segment about how this is cancel culture run amok. TMZ is camped outside the office. TMZ, seriously. A black real estate mogul taking down a racist HOA president. That's exactly their kind of story. Marcus rubbed his eyes. I don't want to make a statement. I don't want this to become a media circus. Too late for that. The video has 10 million views already. It's trending on Twitter under 3 different hashtags. You're a symbol now, whether you like it or not. A symbol of what? Depends on who you ask. To some people, you're a hero. To others, you're a villain. Either way, you're famous. Marcus thought about Zoe, about the fragile peace they'd started to build after the trauma of the parking lot. Kill the interview requests, all of them. Issue a statement saying I'm focused on my family and my business and I have no interest in becoming a public figure. This was a private matter that should have stayed private. That's not going to satisfy them. I don't care about satisfying them. I care about protecting my daughter. Understood. But Marcus, they're going to keep digging. They're going to find everything. Your background, your companies, your wife's death, Zoe's school, everything. Then we get ahead of it. Put together a press packet with the facts. My bio, the company history, the timeline of what happened. Make it boring. Make it business. Give them nothing emotional to latch onto. What about Sandra Mitchell? What about her? She's doing interviews, lots of them, telling her side of the story. Which is that you're a wealthy bully who used your money and power to destroy a dedicated community volunteer. That the video was edited to make her look bad. That she's been receiving death threats and had to leave her home. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Death threats. Apparently, people found her address, her phone number. She's been getting hundreds of calls. Someone threw a brick through her window last night. I didn't authorize any of that. I know, but that's not how it looks. To some people, you're the guy who sicked the internet mob on a 60-year-old woman. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Get me her number. Sandra Mitchell's number. Yes. Marcus, I really don't think get me her number, now. 15 minutes later, he was dialing. She answered on the 3rd ring. Who is this? Sandra, it's Marcus Williams. Silence. Then a bitter laugh. Come to gloat, see how the mighty have fallen. I heard about the threats, the brick through your window. So, I wanted you to know that wasn't me. I didn't ask anyone to do that. I don't condone it. You think that matters? You put me in front of a firing squad and now you're upset that someone pulled the trigger. I put you in front of a community you'd been abusing for years. They pulled the trigger themselves. Abuse. Sandra's voice cracked. I gave everything to that community. Everything. You gave control, domination, fear. That's not leadership, Sandra. That's tyranny. Easy for you to say. You have your millions, your fancy car, your lawyers. What do I have? Nothing. I have nothing left. You have what you built. You spent 6 years building a reputation as someone who targets minorities, who uses her position to harass and intimidate. That reputation didn't come from me. It came from your own actions. I never meant. Stop saying that. You meant every word, every 911 call, every violation notice, every delayed application. You knew exactly what you were doing, Sandra. You just thought you'd never get caught. Sandra was crying now. Marcus could hear it through the phone, the ragged breathing, the wet sobs. What do you want from me? An apology. Fine, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I grabbed your daughter. I'm sorry I called the police. I'm sorry for everything. I don't want your apology. Then what? I want you to understand. I want you to actually truly understand why what you did was wrong. Not because you got caught, not because you lost your position, but because you caused real harm to real people. I understand. No, you don't. You're sorry because you're suffering. That's not the same as understanding. Then help me understand. Tell me what I was supposed to do. A strange man shows up in an expensive car, claims to have business that I know nothing about. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to think that maybe, just maybe, you didn't have all the information. You were supposed to ask questions, to verify, to give me the benefit of the doubt that you would have given any white man in the same situation. I would have done the same thing if you were white. Would you really? Would you have grabbed a white man's daughter? Would you have told 911 that a white man probably kidnapped his own child? Would you have assumed that a white man's Rolls-Royce was stolen? Sandra had no answer. That's what I thought. Marcus heard her take a shaky breath. What happens now? Now you live with the consequences of your choices, just like the rest of us. I can't stay here, in this city. Everyone knows my face. Everyone knows what I did. Then leave. Start over somewhere else. But Sandra, take this lesson with you. Really learn from it. Don't be the same person in your next life that you were in this one. And if I can't change, then you'll keep hurting people. And eventually someone will hurt you back. That's how it works. He ended the call. The conversation left a bitter taste in his mouth. He didn't feel vindicated, didn't feel righteous. He just felt tired. Angela would have known what to do, would have known the right words to say. She'd always been better at this than him, better at seeing people's humanity even when they'd lost sight of their own. He missed her. God, he missed her. 2 weeks later, the new HOA elections were held. Frank Morrison was elected president by a landslide. Mrs. Kim joined the board. So did Marcus Jefferson. The community had changed overnight, not just in leadership, but in spirit. People who had stayed silent for years were suddenly speaking up. Neighbors who had barely acknowledged each other were having real conversations. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever is. There were still pockets of resistance, people who blamed Marcus for destroying Sandra, for bringing outside politics into their quiet community. But they were the minority now, and they were getting quieter every day. Marcus attended the first meeting of the new board, not as the property owner exercising his authority, but as a resident supporting his neighbors. Zoe came with him. She'd been hesitant at first. The community center was right next to the parking lot where everything had happened. But Marcus had talked to her about facing fears about not letting one bad experience define a place forever. The playground is still there, he'd said. The same swings, the same slides. The only thing that's changed is that the mean lady is gone. Would you let her take that playground away from you? No, Zoe had said, her voice fierce. Then let's go. Now she sat beside him in the meeting room, drawing in a notebook while the adults talked about bylaws and budgets and landscaping contracts. Every few minutes, she'd look up at Marcus, make sure he was still there, then go back to her drawing. After the meeting, Mrs. Kim approached them. Mr. Williams, I wanted to thank you again. Please call me Marcus, and you don't have to thank me. I just did what needed to be done. No, you did more than that. You gave us our voices back. For years we suffered in silence because we thought no one would believe us. We thought we were alone. You showed us we weren't. You were never alone. You just needed someone to stand with you. Mrs. Kim looked at Zoe. And this must be the famous Zoe. Zoe looked up from her drawing. I'm not famous. You're a little bit famous, Mrs. Kim said with a smile. You're the girl who was brave enough to stand up to a bully. My daddy stood up to her. I just cried. Crying isn't weakness, sweetheart. Sometimes crying is the bravest thing you can do. It means you felt something. It means you're human. Zoe considered this. I guess so. What are you drawing? Zoe held up her notebook. It was a picture of a playground rendered in crayon. There were swings and slides and monkey bars, all in bright colors. And in the center, 2 figures, a tall one and a small one, holding hands. That's me and my daddy, Zoe said. We're going to play on the playground after this, he promised. That's a beautiful drawing. Thank you. Mrs. Kim looked at Marcus, her eyes glistening. You're raising a wonderful daughter. I'm trying. Her mother would be proud. Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest, the wound that never quite healed. I hope so. After the meeting, Marcus kept his promise. He took Zoe to the playground and pushed her on the swings while the sun started to set. Higher, Daddy. Any higher, and you'll fly away. I want to fly. Push harder. He pushed harder. Watched her soar toward the sky, her laughter echoing across the empty playground. For a moment, everything was perfect. The pain of the past few weeks, the ugliness of what Sandra had done, the exhaustion of the media circus, all of it faded away. There was just this, a father and his daughter. The creak of swing chains, the golden light of early evening. Daddy, look, I'm touching the sky. I see you, baby girl, I see you. She jumped off at the peak of her swing, flying through the air for one breathless moment before landing on her feet in the wood chips. Did you see that? Did you see how high I went? I saw. You're getting so big. Pretty soon you won't need me to push anymore. I'll always need you, Daddy. The words hit him harder than they should have. He knelt down and pulled her into a hug. I'll always be here, Zoe, no matter what. I promise. Even when I'm old, even when you're old, even when I'm married and have my own kids, even then, you'll always be my baby girl. She hugged him tighter. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, more than anything in this whole world. They stayed like that for a long moment, father and daughter wrapped in each other's arms, while the sun sank lower and the shadows grew long. Then Zoe pulled back, her face serious. Daddy. Yeah. Can we go to Scoops and Dreams? You promised ice cream. Marcus laughed. I did promise, didn't I? You always keep your promises. That's what Mommy said. Your mommy was right. Come on, let's go. They walked to the car hand in hand. The parking lot was nearly empty now, just Marcus's Rolls-Royce and a few other vehicles. The same parking lot where just weeks ago, Sandra Mitchell had tried to tear apart everything he'd built. He looked around, took a deep breath. This was his community now. Really his. Not just on paper, not just in legal documents, but in his heart. He'd fought for it, bled for it, watched his daughter cry because of it. And now, it was finally home. Daddy, you're walking too slow. Sorry, baby girl, just thinking. About what? About how lucky I am. Lucky? Zoe wrinkled her nose. That lady was mean to us. That's not lucky. No, that part wasn't lucky. But everything else is. I have you. I have this place. I have people who stood up for what was right. That's pretty lucky, don't you think? Zoe considered this. I guess so, but I'd be luckier if I had ice cream. Marcus grinned. Good point. Let's go get you that ice cream. They drove to Scoops and Dreams just like they'd planned to do on that first day. The day that had gone so wrong. But tonight, nothing went wrong. Zoe got her chocolate chip cookie dough. Marcus got his vanilla. They sat at the same small table by the window, watching the world go by. Daddy. Yeah? I'm glad we came back. To the playground, I mean. Me too. I was scared at first, but then I wasn't. Because you were there. I'll always be there. I know. She took another bite of ice cream, then looked up at him with Angela's eyes. Daddy. Yeah. Do you think that lady learned her lesson? Marcus thought about Sandra, about their phone call, about the brick through her window and the death threats and the life she'd lost. I don't know, baby girl. I hope so. Me too. Because if she didn't learn, she'll just be mean to someone else. And that would be sad. It would be. Maybe someone should teach her, like really teach her, not just punish her. Marcus looked at his daughter with something like wonder, 8 years old, and she understood something that most adults never figured out. Maybe you're right. I'm usually right. Mommy said I got that from her. Marcus laughed. She did say that, didn't she? All the time. They finished their ice cream and drove home. Marcus carried a sleeping Zoe to her room, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Tomorrow, there would be more work to do, More meetings. More decisions. More of the endless process of building something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. But tonight, there was just this, his daughter safe in her bed, dreaming whatever dreams 8-year-olds dream. He stood in the doorway for a long moment watching her sleep. Then he whispered something he'd been carrying in his heart for 3 years. "I'm trying, Angela. I'm trying to be everything she needs. I hope I'm making you proud." The room was silent. But somehow in that silence, Marcus felt an answer. A warmth. A presence. A love that death itself couldn't erase. "I know," he said softly. "I know you're still here, still watching, still guiding us." He closed the door gently. And for the first time in weeks, Marcus Williams slept without nightmares. 6 months passed. The seasons changed. Summer faded into fall. Fall surrendered to winter, and winter slowly gave way to spring. The trees in Riverside Estates bloomed with new leaves, and the playground where Zoe had once been afraid to return was now her favorite place in the world. She was there now on a Saturday morning in early April, climbing the monkey bars while Marcus watched from a nearby bench. She'd grown in the past 6 months, not just taller, but stronger, more confident. The nightmares had stopped around Christmas. The questions about why people hate us had given way to different questions. Better questions. Questions about school and friends and whether she could get a puppy. "Daddy, watch this." She swung from one bar to the next, her braids flying behind her. "I see you, baby girl. Be careful." "I'm always careful." She wasn't. She was reckless and fearless and full of the kind of joy that only children can feel. Marcus loved that about her. Loved that Sandra Mitchell hadn't stolen that light. "Mr. Williams." Marcus turned. A woman he didn't recognize was standing a few feet away. Hesitant, nervous. "Yes." "I'm sorry to bother you. My name is Patricia Hayes. I just moved into the community last month." "Welcome to Riverside Estates." "Thank you. I just wanted to say, I saw the video, the one from the parking lot, and I wanted you to know that it meant something to me. I'm sorry you had to see that." "No, I mean..." Patricia paused, collecting herself. "I'm black, single mother, 2 kids. When I was looking for places to live, I almost crossed this community off my list. I'd heard stories about the HOA president, about how she treated people who looked like us. Those stories were true. I know, but then I saw what you did, how you stood up, how you didn't back down, and I thought, maybe things have changed. Maybe this could be home." Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest. "It can be. It is. We've worked hard to make sure of that." "I know. Frank Morrison, the new president, he's been wonderful. He personally welcomed us when we moved in, helped us find the best schools, introduced us to other families. Frank's a good man. He said you were the one who made it all possible. Said you could have just fired that woman and moved on, but instead you rebuilt the whole community from the ground up. I had a lot of help. Still, it matters. What you did matters." Patricia looked at Zoe, still swinging on the monkey bars. "Is that your daughter?" "Yeah, that's Zoe. She's beautiful. She's everything." Patricia smiled. "I have a daughter about her age. Maybe they could have a play date sometime." "I'd like that. Zoe would too. She's always looking for new friends." "I'll have Frank give you my number." Patricia started to walk away, then turned back. "Mr. Williams. Marcus. Please. Marcus. Thank you for making this place somewhere my kids can feel safe." She walked away before he could respond. Marcus sat back on the bench watching Zoe play. Patricia's words echoed in his mind. "Thank you for making this place somewhere my kids can feel safe." That was what it had all been for, wasn't it? Not revenge, not justice, not even proving Sandra wrong. It had been about safety, about belonging, about making sure the next black family, the next Asian family, The next Hispanic family that moved into Riverside Estates wouldn't have to fight the battles he'd fought. "Daddy, come push me on the swings. Coming, baby girl?" He jogged over to the swings and took his position behind Zoe. "Ready. Ready." He pushed. She soared. "Higher, Daddy. You're going to touch the clouds. I want to touch the stars." He pushed harder, watched her reach for the sky. And for a moment, just a moment, he let himself believe that everything was going to be okay. That afternoon, Marcus received a phone call he'd been expecting for weeks. "Mr. Williams, this is Detective Okonkwo from the Atlanta Police Department. I'm calling about the Sandra Mitchell case." "Yes. I wanted to let you know that the investigation is closed. Mrs. Mitchell has agreed to a plea deal, community service mandatory counseling, and a restraining order preventing her from contacting you or your daughter. No jail time." The district attorney felt that given her lack of prior criminal record and the circumstances, a rehabilitative approach was more appropriate. "I know that might be disappointing." "No, it's fine." "Sir, I never wanted her in prison, Detective. I wanted her to learn, to change. Prison doesn't teach anything except how to survive prison." "That's a generous perspective." "It's my daughter's perspective, actually. She said punishing people isn't the same as teaching them." "Smart kid. She gets it from her mother." After he hung up, Marcus sat in his home office staring at nothing. The case was closed. The chapter was finished. Sandra Mitchell would face consequences, but not destruction. She would have a chance to become something different, something better. He hoped she would take it. His phone buzzed again, a text from Frank. "Board meeting tonight, 7 p.m. We're voting on the new community garden proposal. Zoe's welcome to come, the Kim kids will be there." Marcus smiled. A community garden. 6 months ago, this community could barely hold a civil conversation. Now they were planting vegetables together. Progress. Real progress. "We'll be there," he texted back. The board meeting was held in the same room where Marcus had confronted Sandra all those months ago. But it felt different now. Lighter. The heaviness that had hung over this place, the tension that had poisoned every interaction, was gone. Zoe sat in the corner with the Kim children playing some complicated card game that Marcus didn't understand. Their laughter filled the room, a sound that would have been unthinkable under Sandra's reign. Frank called the meeting to order. "First order of business, the community garden proposal. Mrs. Kim, would you like to present?" Susan Kim stood, a folder in her hands. "Thank you, Frank. As many of you know, we've been discussing the possibility of converting the unused lot behind the clubhouse into a community garden. A place where residents can grow vegetables, flowers, whatever they like. A place where neighbors can work side by side and get to know each other." She opened the folder and pulled out a rendering. "This is the proposed design. 20 individual plots, plus a shared herb garden and a children's section where families can teach their kids about growing food. The estimated cost is $12,000 for initial setup, with ongoing maintenance, covered by a small annual fee from participating residents." "Who designed this?" someone asked. "My husband and I, with help from the Rodriguez family. Carlos has offered to donate his landscaping services for the initial construction." Marcus Jefferson, the software engineer whose application Sandra had delayed for 6 months, raised his hand. "I'd like to be the first to sign up for a plot. My grandmother used to have a garden back in Georgia. I'd love to teach my kids the same skills she taught me." "I'll take a plot too," said another resident. Then another. Then another. Within 10 minutes, all 20 plots were claimed. Frank was grinning. "Well, I think we have our answer. All in favor of approving the community garden." Every hand in the room went up. Motion passed, unanimously. Frank banged his gavel. "Congratulations, Riverside Estates. We're getting a garden." Applause filled the room. People were shaking hands, hugging, making plans. The Kim children ran over to show Zoe the garden rendering, pointing excitedly at the children's section. Marcus watched it all from his seat in the back row. This was what community was supposed to look like. This was what Sandra Mitchell had stolen from these people for 6 years. And now finally, they were getting it back. Frank caught his eye across the room and nodded. A simple acknowledgement. A thank you that didn't need words. Marcus nodded back. After the meeting, as families filtered out into the warm spring evening, Mrs. Kim approached Marcus. "Mr. Williams, Marcus, I have something for you." She handed him an envelope. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a photograph. It showed the Kim family standing in front of their house, Lunar New Year decorations visible in the background. Lanterns, banners, all the things Sandra had tried to make them take down. "We put them up again this year," Mrs. Kim said, "for the first time since, well, you know." "I'm glad. My children asked why we hadn't displayed them before. I didn't know what to tell them. How do you explain to a child that someone hated us for celebrating our own culture? You don't. You just show them that we won't be silenced." Mrs. Kim's eyes glistened. "That's exactly what my husband said." She hugged him. It was brief, unexpected, and full of more gratitude than words could express. "Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Thank you for standing up, for telling your story. I couldn't have done any of this without you. We stood up because you showed us it was possible. That's a gift I can never repay." She walked away to collect her children. Marcus looked at the photograph in his hands. A family. Their home. Their traditions. Displayed proudly without fear. This was the victory. Not the headlines, not the viral videos, not Sandra Mitchell's fall from grace. This, a Korean family celebrating Lunar New Year in a community that finally accepted them. "Daddy, look what I drew." Zoe ran up, clutching a piece of paper. It was another drawing of the playground, but this time there were more figures. Not just Marcus and Zoe, but other children. Other families. "That's the Kim kids," Zoe explained, pointing. "And that's Patricia's daughter. She told me her name is Maya, and she likes the same cartoons as me. And that's the Rodriguez family. They have a dog named Biscuit, and Mr. Rodriguez said maybe I can walk him sometimes." "That's a beautiful drawing, baby girl." "It's our community," Zoe said proudly. "All of us together." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Yeah, it is." "Can we frame it? I want to put it in my room." "Absolutely. We'll get a frame tomorrow." "Promise?" "Promise." They walked to the car hand in hand. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Other families were walking to their cars too, calling out goodbyes, making plans for the weekend. "Daddy." "Yeah. I like it here now." "Me too, baby girl." "I didn't used to. After what that lady did. I didn't want to come back ever." "I know. But now it's different. Now it feels like home." "That's because it is home. Our home. We helped make it that way." Zoe was quiet for a moment. "Daddy." "Yeah." "Do you think that lady ever thinks about us, about what she did?" Marcus considered the question. He'd thought about Sandra often over the past 6 months. Wondered where she'd gone, what she was doing, whether she'd learned anything from what happened. "I don't know. Maybe." "I hope she does. I hope she thinks about us and feels bad." "Why?" "Because if she feels bad, that means she knows what she did was wrong. And if she knows it was wrong, maybe she won't do it to someone else." Marcus looked at his daughter with something like awe. 8 years old, and she understood forgiveness better than most adults. "You're pretty smart, you know that." "Mommy said I got my brains from her." "She was right. She was always right. That's what you said." "I did say that, and it's true." They reached the car. Marcus opened the back door for Zoe, helped her into her booster seat. "Daddy." "Yeah." "I think Mommy would be happy. About everything. About how we helped those people. About how we made things better." Marcus felt the familiar ache in his chest, the wound that never fully healed. "I think so too. She's watching us right from heaven. Right. Then she knows. She knows we did good. Marcus leaned in and kissed her forehead. We did good, baby girl. We really did. He closed her door, walked around to the driver's side and got in. As he started the engine, he looked in the rearview mirror at his daughter. She was already falling asleep, her head lolling against the car seat, her drawing clutched in her hands. Our community. All of us together. He drove home slowly, savoring the peace. 3 weeks later, Marcus received a letter. It was handwritten on plain white paper with no return address. But he recognized the handwriting from the dozens of HOA notices and violation letters that had been part of his discovery in the case against Sandra. He opened it. Dear Mr. Williams, I don't expect you to read this. I wouldn't blame you if you threw it away. But I needed to write it, even if no one ever sees it. I've been in counseling for 4 months now. Court-ordered at first, but I've continued voluntarily. My therapist says I have a lot of work to do. She's right. I grew up in a small town in Alabama, the kind of place where everyone looked the same, thought the same, believed the same things. I never questioned what I was taught. Never wondered if there was another way to see the world. When I moved to Atlanta, I brought those beliefs with me. I told myself I wasn't prejudiced. I had black friends, Asian colleagues, Hispanic neighbors. But I see now that having someone in your life isn't the same as seeing them as fully human. As equal. I saw threats where there were none. I saw criminals where there were fathers. I saw invaders where there were neighbors. What I did to you and your daughter was unforgivable. I know that. There are no words that can undo the fear in that little girl's eyes. No apology that can erase the marks I left on her arm. But I'm trying to change. Really trying. Not because the court ordered it. Not because I lost everything. But because for the first time in my life, I'm looking at myself honestly. And I don't like what I see. Your daughter said something at the community meeting. I don't know if you remember. She said she hoped I would learn my lesson so I wouldn't be mean to someone else. I think about that every day. A child 8 years old who I traumatized and terrorized, hoping that I would learn. Not hoping I would suffer. Not hoping I would be punished. Hoping I would grow. That's more grace than I deserve. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. I haven't earned it, and probably never will. I just wanted you to know that your daughter's words changed something in me. That her grace, her humanity broke through walls that decades of hatred had built. I'm moving to Oregon next month. My sister lives there. She's offered to let me stay while I figure out what comes next. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know who I'll become. But I know who I don't want to be anymore. Thank you for not destroying me when you had every right to. Thank you for giving me a chance to become something better. I hope Zoe is doing well. I hope she's recovered from what I did. I hope she grows up knowing that she's worthy of respect, dignity, and love, not because her father is wealthy or powerful, but because she's a human being. I'm sorry. For everything. Sandra Mitchell. Marcus read the letter twice. Then he folded it carefully and put it in his desk drawer. He didn't know what to feel. Anger. Relief. Something like hope. The emotions tangled together, impossible to separate. Sandra Mitchell was trying to change. Whether she would succeed, whether her transformation was genuine or just a performance for reduced sentencing, he couldn't know. Might never know. But Zoe's words had reached her. That much was clear. A child's grace breaking through walls of hatred. Maybe that was the real victory. Not the legal battles. Not the board elections. Not the community garden, or the Lunar New Year decorations, or the new families moving in without fear. Maybe the real victory was simply this, a little girl who had every reason to hate choosing, instead to hope. Marcus picked up his phone and called Frank. Hey, it's Marcus. I have a question. Shoot. The community garden. Is there any way to add an anonymous plot? Someone who wants to donate but doesn't want recognition. Sure, we could do that. Why? I want to sponsor a plot in honor of second chances. That's unexpected, but I like it. I'll make it happen. Thanks, Frank. Marcus. Yeah. Everything okay? Marcus looked at the drawer where Sandra's letter was hidden. Everything's fine. Better than fine, actually. Good. See you at the next meeting. Wouldn't miss it. He hung up and walked to Zoe's room. She was at her desk doing homework, her tongue sticking out in concentration. Daddy, you're supposed to knock. Sorry, baby girl. Can I come in? I guess. He sat on the edge of her bed. I wanted to tell you something. What? Remember when you said you hoped that lady would learn her lesson? Zoe's pencil stopped moving. Yeah. I think she did. I think she's trying to become a better person. Really? Really. And I think it's because of you. Because of what you said. Zoe looked confused. I didn't say anything special. You said you hoped she would learn so she wouldn't hurt anyone else. That was special, Zoe. That was grace. What's grace? It's giving someone something they don't deserve. Forgiveness. A second chance. Kindness when they've only shown cruelty. Oh. Zoe thought about this. Is that good? It's the best thing a person can give, and you gave it without even knowing. That's who you are, baby girl. That's the person your mother raised you to be. Zoe's eyes glistened. I miss Mommy. I know. I miss her too, every day. Do you think she's proud of us? Marcus reached out and took his daughter's hand. I know she is. I feel it. Every time you show kindness to someone who doesn't deserve it, every time you choose hope over hate, she's there, Zoe, watching, smiling, proud. I want to be like her when I grow up. You already are, more than you know. Zoe threw her arms around him. He held her tight, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, feeling her heartbeat against his chest. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl. More than anything in this whole world. They stayed like that for a long time. That night, after Zoe was asleep, Marcus stood on his back porch, looking up at the stars. The past 6 months had changed him. Had changed everything. A parking lot confrontation had become a movement. A racist HOA president had become a cautionary tale. A traumatized little girl had become a symbol of grace. But none of that mattered as much as this. His daughter was happy. His daughter was safe. His daughter was growing up in a community that finally saw her, as she truly was, not as a threat, not as a problem, but as a child worthy of love. That was the victory. That was the legacy. Not buildings or bank accounts or business empires. Not viral videos or news coverage or public vindication. Just a little girl who could play on a playground without fear. Who could draw pictures of her community and see herself in them. Who could hope for the redemption of someone who had hurt her. Angela would have been proud. Marcus looked up at the brightest star in the sky, the one he'd told Zoe was where Mommy lived, and whispered, "We did it, baby. We did good." The star seemed to twinkle in response. And Marcus Williams, who had fought his whole life for the right to simply exist, finally felt at peace. Because in the end, the greatest revenge against hatred wasn't destruction. It was building something beautiful in its place. It was raising a daughter who could see the humanity in everyone, even those who refused to see it in her. It was proving every single day that love was stronger than fear, that hope was stronger than hate, that a little girl's grace could change the world. Zoe stirred in her sleep, calling out softly, "Daddy?" Marcus walked back inside, climbed the stairs, and opened her door. "I'm here, baby girl. I'm right here." "I had a dream about Mommy." "Yeah, what happened?" "She said she was proud of us. She said we did good." Marcus smiled through the tears forming in his eyes. "She was right. We did. Can you stay until I fall asleep?" "Of course." He sat on the edge of her bed and held her hand until her breathing slowed and her grip relaxed. Then he kissed her forehead, stood, and walked to the door. He looked back at his daughter one last time. His legacy, his purpose, his whole world. And he made a silent promise to her, to Angela, to himself. He would keep building, keep fighting, keep proving that a black man and his daughter had every right to take up space in this world. Not because he had something to prove to people like Sandra Mitchell, but because Zoe deserved to grow up in a world that saw her. That was worth everything. That was worth anything. Marcus closed the door softly and walked to his own room. Tomorrow there would be more work, more meetings, more battles to fight and victories to win. But tonight, there was only this: a father who had protected his daughter, a community that had learned to heal, and a little girl sleeping peacefully dreaming of her mother's pride. Some stories end with villains defeated and heroes triumphant. But the best stories end with something simpler, something truer. They end with a family whole and unbroken facing tomorrow together. And that is exactly how this story ends. Not with revenge, not with destruction, but with a father and daughter hand in hand walking into a future they built themselves. A future where every child can play on every playground, where every family can celebrate their traditions without fear, where every person, regardless of what they look like, is seen as fully and completely human. That future isn't here yet, but it's closer than it was before. And every day, in communities like Riverside Estates, in families like the Williams family, it gets a little closer still, because that's what happens when one person stands up, when one voice says enough, when one little girl offers grace to someone who showed her none. The world changes, slowly, painfully, imperfectly, but it changes, and that is the only victory that matters, the only legacy worth leaving, the only story worth telling.